You're listening to the Whole Church Podcast, a proud member of the Anazal Podcast Network. Our efforts to educate and unite the church are made possible thanks to our sponsors on Patreon, Captivate, and Apple Podcast. You could join them on one of those networks, or you can support the show by making a one-time tip on our Captivate website down below in the show's description. Romans 5:18-21 of the New American Standard Bible. So then, as through one offense the result was condemnation to all mankind, so also through one act of righteousness the result was justification of life to all mankind. For as through the one man's disobedience the many were made sinners, so also through the obedience of the one the many will be made righteous. The law came in so the offense would increase, but where sin increased, grace abounded all the more. So that, as sin reigned in death, so also grace would reign through righteousness to eternal life through Jesus Christ our Lord. In this section of scripture, St. Paul is writing about salvation. He spends a lot of this chapter discussing how Adam's sin or guilt has impacted all of mankind, and he compares that to the salvation that Jesus offers, that kind of stuff. Nick Polk, if we truly believe that Jesus brought justification of life to all mankind, as it says in this verse, how should that belief impact how we treat one another today?
Man, it's good. I just think about what Jesus said, and I can't remember which part of scripture it's in, but where he says, you will go and do greater things than I have done. And I think that if we recognize that our justification is real and that Jesus is like the paragon for what it means to be a good human, a whole human, and Jesus says, you're going to do things greater than I've done. I think we would take those words very seriously, and therefore things would be better.
Yeah. If Nick does greater things than even he did, maybe we should celebrate Nick's birthday even more.
So true. I mean, Jesus gets way too many holidays. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Easter and your birthday? Ugh.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Whole Church Podcast, possibly your favorite church unity podcast. Possibly not. This is also going up on Systematic Ecology, your favorite, faith and fandom podcast. Probably not. There's a lot of those. We can more confidently say the thing on the whole church. There's not a ton of unity podcasts. Because, people click on things that are clickbaity and divisive, and unity's not divisive enough, apparently. Anyway, guys, I am Joshua Knoll. I am without TJ today. We are doing a special episode because a lot of our other episodes didn't go through the way we planned. We're still not sure what happened with Father Jonathan, but he wasn't able to make it to our original Sins episode. Eric Nevins canceled on our yearly episode with him about the State of Christian podcast. His schedule just changed, and we found out the week of, so we weren't able to reschedule anything. But luckily, I have a friend who wrote a book, and all of you celebrate him this time of year. The one and only old jolly Saint Nick Polk is coming to town through your earbuds right now. Nick, can we get a ho, ho, ho?
Ho, 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 listeners. St. Nicholas is here.
Oh, man, no, I'm excited for this. It's going to be a short one. We're just going to kind of hang out, talk about his book, talk about Substack a little bit, and we'll do a couple fun Christmas questions just for the holiday.
Oh, yeah. Love Christmas.
Oh, yeah. Good stuff. And I'm trying to think what else I wanted to say. There were other things. Oh, yeah. To explain things. On Whole Church, I explained kind of what we missed in there. On Systematic Ecology, this is going to be on that feed as well. We had some stuff going on with two of our main hosts, Will and Christian, had some stuff going on that made it harder for them to lead episodes this month. So you might have noticed like we missed a drive-in or something, or some Christmas episodes didn't really happen the way that we told you it might. We're going to make up with it for the fantastic, quick little Christmas special. Just like, the Peanuts Christmas special or Rudolph. It's going to be short, sweet, and fantastic.
The Whole Church Christmas special, if you will.
Yeah, it'll be great. So if DJ were here, he'd tell you to check out the whole Anazal Podcast Network. I still think you should, but I can't tell you as well as him. So I
second that. I second it.
Yeah. You can also get some merch in our store. That's true on Whole Church and Systematic Ecology. They both have comfy t-shirts. We prioritize comfort in our merch because that's why people wear stuff. It's not because it looks good. It's because it's comfy,
Yeah.
And, you got Christmas money. Think about spending it. With that, Nick, we always do a silly question over on the Whole Church Podcast. And just because this is a crossover does not mean that we're going to avoid the silliness. No, we're going to lean into it even harder. Today, it's a simple one. What's the best flightless bird? I'll go first. I'll give you a little bit of time to think. I don't think there's a clear answer. To be honest, you know, penguins are cool, ostriches are cool, chickens are actually really tasty. You know, you gotta prioritize taste sometimes, flavor. I'm gonna go with Kevin though, specifically Kevin from the movie Up. He's fantastic.
Because what is he? He's like a
yeah. I cheated.
He's like a dodo mixed with
idea.
an ostrich. Like he's like this hybrid ancient bird or something.
I have no idea, but I do know that he surprised us on our honeymoon. We were in Disney at Animal Kingdom, and all of a sudden Kevin was just there, and I'm like, all right, we're taking a picture with Kevin. So,
dude, that's rad.
You know, special place in my heart. Kevin was part of my honeymoon.
Kevin, the best flightless bird, and you know, also a mother.
Best wingman.
You know? Yeah,
best wingman.
So true.
Nick, what about you? Best flightless bird?
Yeah, you know, Kevin's a good one. I'm bringing it to the real world. You know, I've talked on this podcast before. I'm very open to things having multiple perspectives and avenues to truth, and I'm very against certainty. But I am certain that penguins are the coolest flightless birds. They have the best movies. You know, how many flightless birds movies can you name that aren't penguins? Very few, if any.
I have yet to see an animated ostrich surf. So
yeah, exactly. Surf's Up 2, Happy Feet 2, March of the Penguins, March of the Penguins 2, the Pebble, the penguin, the Magic Pebble. You know what I'm talking about? That animated movie.
Oh, man, yeah. This is. I think you're right. I think you win.
That's the only time I'm certain that, like, when I got this question and saw it, I was like, this is one of my favorite silly questions.
That's not a competition. Yeah. Although, if you're as much a foodie as me, I think chicken still could be a solid competition.
Oh, for flavor, it's chicken. Yeah.
Turkeys can fly though, right? I can't choose turkey.
That's a great question. I think they can. But I don't think they can fly for long periods of time.
Yeah.
Don't take my word for that though. I
love turkey.
Same.
But hey, we're going to talk about Substack a little bit. This is going to be a little bit weird. It's going to be like a little tech heavy and a little nerd heavy because, you know, this is also systematic ecology. We're going to talk about Tolkien and Kingdom Hearts. It's going to be great. But first, how did you get introduced to Substack, and what kind of inspired you to start writing in this kind of format?
So before I got to Substack, I started a Medium, and Medium was kind of the Skype to Zoom, where everyone was on Medium and doing Medium. And then all of a sudden Substack came around and everyone just forgot about Medium. And, you know, everyone was like, oh, I'm going to Skype you. And then all of a sudden Zoom came in and no one has used Skype ever since. It's facts. Don't look that up. And so I posted one thing on Medium, you know, just to have a platform where I published something. And found out that Substack was kind of the new hot thing for journalists and independent writers. And so I was like, yeah, I'll do this. And I had thought about it. And so linked up with Trip to do some Tolkien classes. And he was, you know, talking about transferring his stuff to Substack because Diana Butler Bass had recently done so a year or two ago. I think this was 2 years ago. And so I was like, hey, this is my idea. I thought it would be kind of interesting. And he was just kind of encouraged me to do it, and so I've been writing on Substack for the past couple years now.
Man, yeah. I am. Trip Substack's great, so people should check that out. So it's process this or process that.
Yeah, process this.
Yeah. See, I just know if I look up Trip, I find it. You know, and then once you hit subscribe, you don't have to remember the name anymore.
Right.
It's great. Yeah. No, I mean, it's really interesting because I was just following, like, you and Trip were the only ones, and I had it like on email. And recently I got the app, and I'm like, oh, I've been kind of missing out. Substack's actually kind of cool. What's also interesting though, like, there's kind of a little bit of like a cultural commentary on it, where like a lot of people nowadays want to see excerpts of your writing, you know, for work. So you're like, okay, this is their writing style, but they don't want it to be too serious. So a lot of people use stuff like Substack because it's like, okay, this is like really who they are, not like this professional facade that people put on. So it's like a weird combination of both, where like you are writing serious stuff, but you're not doing it in this, like, you're not putting on a face to do it. You're just kind of doing it as you. And that's kind of just like the expectation over there. It's an interesting culture on Substack.
Yeah, it is. It's a very unique social media site where it's like focused on for the most part, long form text, which is long form anything on the internet is not popular except for, Oppenheimer and YouTube video essays, but now Substack,
specifically.
Yeah.
Well, and of course, YouTube explanations of Kingdom Hearts.
Right.
They will be hours and hours and hours long. And for some reason, people like me still watch them.
But then, your Substack, the Kingdom Key, comes in and compacts everything so people don't have to spend hours of their time watching those videos.
It's so funny because I'm like, this is so long. I'll write this long thing and I'm like, although, comparatively, if they get this on YouTube, this will be hours. So
I read your stuff probably in like 10 to 12 minutes. And I was... Yeah.
You're so kind. This isn't about me though. But talking about just like the nature of it though, one of the things I found interesting when I got the app is it's almost like old school Twitter and Tumblr had a baby.
Yeah.
And somehow it was more functional than both.
Right. Yeah. I think there's just something because Medium had this cool platform that it kind of like streamlined blogging, which WordPress is really cool, but very confusing. And Substack just made it so user friendly and accessible where they, like you said, they took what WordPress does, kind of transferred it to Tumblr, added Twitter kind of, I don't know the right word, configuration components or whatever.
Yeah. And they're still kind of tweaking the phone app. I kind of feel like it might be, like everyone's looking for the next Twitter. And part of me is like, I wonder if this ends up kind of taking the place because people are looking for an exact replica of Twitter, but
and they got their notes. They have like a little notes thing, which is basically Twitter thread.
Yeah. Yeah. So like I pull up my app now and the way that I follow people, I'm usually pretty intentional in the first place, but this app has made it a little bit easier for me. So I have like some writers on there who also work for MSNBC. I have some people on like the Dispatch, the Bulwark, who are like kind of conservative technically, but like the conservatives who don't like Trump because those are the only ones that are worth listening to, in my opinion.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah. And then also, I got like some more conservative theologians that I follow. Caitlin Chess on there, Sky Jathani's on there, but then I also am following like Trip Fuller, Tom Ord. And then I also have like my geek stuff where I got like Nick Polk and some Tolkien stuff and someone you told me to subscribe to. I don't know who it is, but if Nick tells me to do something, I listen. I obey. But then like even some comic book writers and just like how Twitter used to be like a place where like it's like you're actually interacting with these big name people that you at one point felt like we were the little people and out there were like the famous people, and then Twitter kind of like bridged that a little bit.
Yeah.
My first experience like that in the last couple of years was actually on Substack when I was on Russell Moore's page and went, wait a minute, Russell Moore and I follow some of the same comic book writers.
That's pretty cool.
I was like, dude, because you don't think Russell Moore and think, yeah, that guy probably reads some really good graphic novels.
False.
Yeah, turns out he does. Yeah, but what I guess that's the thing is like a lot of the algorithms, other places are targeted however they're targeted. I have found where, especially because it has this thing where like if I subscribe to Nick, as soon as I hit subscribe, it has like, here's some people he suggests that I follow and some people he suggests that I subscribe, and I can immediately follow and subscribe those people. So it's kind of like populating it for me. So once I did that, the MSNBC writer, all of a sudden some other more progressive people I wouldn't have heard come in, and then Dispatch, and with some other conservative voices I might not have known otherwise. So just like as a format, do you think it's easier in Substack? Because, like one of the big criticisms of like Facebook, X, Threads, that kind of stuff is like we tend to get isolated in like echo chambers. Do you think Substack makes it easier to avoid that? Or do you think it's just I'm being intentional and giving the app too much credit?
I need to look and see kind of what their policies are when it comes to algorithms and kind of how they suggest stuff. But I think they have talked about trying to move away from the algorithm feeding people stuff through targeted ads and things. And I think it's more focused on word of mouth, like where I get to choose Substacks that I have that I subscribe to kind of suggest where, like, you know, if someone looks on my Substacks, they'll see that I'm suggesting yours, Trips, Diana Butler Bass's, a couple other people. But there's also things that I subscribe to that I don't suggest. And,
Same.
you know, I don't ever say like, oh, like it'll suggest like friends or like mutual friends kind of to follow, but I never get suggestions for other Substacks. And I think there's a disadvantage where you're probably not getting as much exposure as you might if an algorithm was just kind of doing its thing. But also the advantage is that word of mouth is like the best for getting like actually committed readers and subscribers. And so on Twitter, you know, let's say you might have 10,000 followers, but only, you know, 800 of them actually care about what you have to say. And, you know, Substack, I feel like, is kind of focused on those 800 people, you know, out of your 10,000.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that just like the automated thing of, hey, you're subscribed to Nick. And as soon as I hit subscribe, where it pops up and says, do you want to follow these people he suggested, really helps me expand in both directions if I want to.
Right.
I think what you're getting at too is like, it's also possible to lean further into the echo chamber, because if I only follow people like Nick, Trip, etc.,
right,
and people that they suggest, I'll just keep going further into it. So you still got to be a little intentional. But
I guess I didn't even answer that part of the question.
I mean, I feel like that's kind of what you're getting at. It's just kind of, it's different because the algorithms aren't functioning the same way.
Yeah, like I'm not being.
But if you're doing that word of mouth thing,
word of mouth. Like I have more control over the circles I'm in. Where, like you said, the risk of keeping myself in the echo chamber, I feel like is more in my control rather than like an external digital force kind of putting me in that certain box.
Yeah. Well, yeah. For example, like part of why I got off X is, no matter how hard I tried to do both sides-ism, it kept emphasizing, here's the next thing that this person said, and all the conservative like garbage. And I'm like,
same.
I don't want this. Like, I didn't have as much control as I wanted. Even, you know, like on Facebook, when it comes to like, because it based off like on Facebook, I feel like I just have too many family friends. And because a lot of my family are from like rural areas, I just get these ads from conservatives that I do not want to, you know, I don't want to see those ads. I think because you were getting at some of like the money and word of mouth stuff, I think one of the advantages too is like Substack doesn't have to fall into let's sell ad space because it already has money built into it.
Right.
You know, once you subscribe to Nick, you can choose a money level, and Substack's already making profit off that. So they're not having to concern themselves with ads as much, I feel like.
Oh, yeah. Anyway. And I guess that's they incorporated like the aspects of like Patreon as well, you know? Yeah.
The best of 4 worlds.
Part of your worlds.
I like how you went with that, and I'm over here, Hannah Montana. Yeah.
Oh, best of both worlds. Sorry. Didn't even catch. I mean, we're in the Disney universe, so.
Yeah, it works. Well, speaking of both worlds, we each have some worlds that we talk about on Substack. You famously talk about Tolkien. We already mentioned kind of like I have the Kingdom Key, Kingdom Hearts, weird little nerd corner that I'm in. That's probably way more niche because I feel like Tolkien is pretty popular, but the level that you get into Tolkien, it's a whole nother game. So you want to kind of break into like your love for Tolkien and just some of like why people absolutely need to follow your Substack?
Yeah, you absolutely need to obey me as Josh does, you know.
Yeah, he is a saint.
I am a saint. No, I mean, it's yeah, I mean, there's just so much Tolkien content, but you know, the reason why I got into it is that, so my Substack's Tolkien Pop, and I talk about the intersection of Tolkien and pop culture, and not just in the sense of like, oh, there was a cool reference to Tolkien here, or like, oh, here's, if you like fantasy, here's why Brandon Sanderson is influenced by Tolkien. Like, but actually exploring kind of through different theologies, philosophies, certain theories, why Tolkien might be impacting pop culture in certain ways, you know? And so I wanted to explore that, or at least, you know, kind of take a Tolkienian lens and read other pop culture stuff. So, you know, like an example I did, talked about how The Sopranos TV show explicitly reference the Lord of the Rings movies, and it becomes like the domino that sets off the conflict for the rest of the episode. But then in another, post that I do on Yellowstone, the TV show, which just finished its series finale, I just took a Tolkienian lens and critiqued kind of the negative aspects of nihilism and postmodernism.
Yeah, no, it's good stuff. I know, like, also you have like some Tolkien and South Park comparison stuff. That's fun. And of course, one of my favorites, you do this one is in your book, Tolkien and Gore, the God Butcher, or Sauron and Gore, the God Butcher. But if I remember right, you also kind of re-released that after the election and kind of threw Trump in there as a comparison with the two too, right?
No, so I had actually. So
I'm just wrong.
No, so you got partial things correct. So the one in the book is Saruman and Gore the God Butcher.
Oh, okay. Yeah, my bad.
But it's kind of the same issues where Tolkien's villains are. They start off. Except Morgoth. Morgoth was always evil. But people kind of, villains in Tolkien start off wanting to do something that isn't bad in and of itself. But then it becomes, they're obsessed with themselves and they become the thing that they try to eradicate or change.
Oh, okay. Which is just Gore's story, basically.
Yeah, exactly. So Saruman is like that. But I had, actually my first Medium post was about comparing Sauron and Morgoth to Trump, specifically Morgoth.
Yeah. Okay.
Because Morgoth
I remember that now. That was good.
Purely intentionally wanting to destroy things. And he's a coward because he's going to destroy things and send minions out, but he's not actually willing to, get his hands dirty.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, man, good stuff. Well, yeah. And you inspired me. You and Aaron Simmons, not together. They didn't come to me together, but you're writing and me kind of just seeing like the joy that you get out of it. Not even just, it wasn't as much of a, I think I could do that as much as he seems to be enjoying himself. I want to enjoy myself doing something similar.
Yeah.
It really had nothing to do with, I think I could write as good as Nick. I can't, it's fine, but
get out of here.
I can have fun.
Josh is a great writer. Don't listen to his self-deprecation.
But then Aaron Simmons' book where he's talking about like leaning into your finitude, and it's not like the usual cheesy Christian thing of like, no, make every moment worth it. Constantly talk about Jesus. He's like, no. Like, what is the thing that you're actually okay risking your time doing? Like that thing that makes you feel alive is actually worth doing because it makes you a better you. And I'm like, oh, wait a minute. I am a better me when I play Kingdom Hearts because I am just happier.
Yeah.
And I was like, as weird as it is, because like you kind of get that pressure from me. I get that pressure on like Christians who are like, no, there's more important things. You should be doing more evangelism and reading your Bible. And then even geeks are like, well, you got to expand. You can't just do the same thing over and over, which is true. I like doing new things, but also I've learned to just not have the shame of, I'm going to play the same game 500 times. Like it's okay. If it makes me live into myself a little bit better, then I think is worth my finitude. And, writing about it has helped me explore why I love it so much. And for me, kind of gives me life in doing that. Obviously, you do want people to read and then give you money.
Yeah.
But, could you talk to some about how does thinking about Tolkien, like living in this world, kind of breathe life into you?
Yeah. What you said and how you talked about Kingdom Hearts reminds me of what Tolkien said about good fantasy and good art, is that any good piece of art, and Tolkien thought that fantasy was like the height of it. But any good art, once you enter it or when you participate in it or read it, play it, what have you, watch it, it should have you, once you're done playing Kingdom Hearts or done reading Lord of the Rings for the 6th time, and you come back to reality, those things should inspire you to live your life better. And part of why I like to write about it and explore it so much is that, part of my, testimony or whatever is that when I was kind of in a place where, and when I was a young adult, didn't know what I believed, I read Lord of the Rings and just kind of had a mystical experience of peace and kind of, found process theology and kind of entered in this place of like feeling peaceful. And so anyway, every time I return to the Lord of the Rings and Tolkien's world and write about it, I come back to my real world and feel like I'm living it better.
Yeah. I don't know how explicitly I've said some of this, but like I remember just as a kid, a lot of the stuff I don't think I would have encountered otherwise. So that's part of why Kingdom Hearts is so special to me, I think, is like I lived in that world of evangelical Christianity. Everything is certain. Everything is whatever. And then Kingdom Hearts is fantasy. It's like, oh, okay, God doesn't really exist in this world. They're not necessarily Christian games. So I don't have to think about it that way. And all of a sudden it's like, without the certainty, it kind of gave me permission within the structure of the game to question, well, what does it mean to say I exist? Is darkness in every heart? Are these things real? And then I think what's really ironic is as I developed and kept playing, and I didn't really see it, that's what I was doing. You know, like it was kind of like a subconscious thing of like, this is part of why this is giving me life. And even though like I grew and I like wanted to be a strong theologian and went to school for some of that, like got a degree in Bible. And I was like, yeah, I know all this stuff and I have this theology and all these building blocks. And then I would turn to these games still. And what the game was doing was saying, here's all these metaphysics. Here's what a heart is. Here's what your body is. Here's what this thing. And none of it matters. It's actually about the connection. All that little bits that you think matter don't matter. And then once I started doing this and writing it, I was like, oh, I've actually been subconsciously learning from this game this whole time. And what's interesting is like, you know, there's this saying of like orthodoxy breeds orthopraxy, right belief comes to right action, right?
Yeah.
My actions, I think, if I reflect on my own, like my behavior towards the world is more in line with what Kingdom Hearts has been saying this whole time than it was what I was saying that I believed, you know? So it's almost like I'm starting to learn to like reconcile that. And part of that is me more embracing that Christian Taoism term that I've kind of been leaning into. And like, you know what, actually, this is more who I am. I actually maybe do think we're not all born evil and all this stuff, you know? Yeah. Which, you know, that's part of what I've been writing about. Another thing I'm trying to get Nick's help on, because I like tied Tolkien into coming out soon, probably soonish. Soon is very vague. Y'all should know this from me. But talking about like some of the origins in Kingdom Hearts and like this idea of time being certain and some of the certainty that certain villains in Lord of the Rings play that maybe you could speak to a little bit more. And this Calvinist idea of God where he knows the future are all kind of the same characters. And it's a problem when your version of God is the same character as these other guys in fiction who are very clearly bad guys.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, it gets difficult just because Tolkien's metaphysics don't align with his articulated beliefs or his application of his fantasy. But this is kind of just the issue with Aquinas in general, or like kind of some aspects of like classical versions of the doctrine of God, which Calvinism is a part of. And what Tolkien believed is that God was all powerful, and he kind of he has a monotheistic God in his secondary world who kind of functions in a similar way. But he emphasized that creatures have free agency. And in order for creatures to do things that are good, they have to have the freedom to do so. And, you know, he's probably more of like, I don't know the right way to say it. It's more of, I guess it's God is kind of his version of God is kind of setting things up in a way for particular things to happen, or setting things up to present certain choices for individuals to make so that, you know, God's plan can be fulfilled. But, you know, I'm more in the Tom Ward camp when it comes to the doctrine of God. But I think Tolkien, like I said, believed in an omnipotent God while also maintaining heavily that freedom is important, and in T-World too, being a holistic human being.
Yeah. I think the weird thing for me is, well, I don't want to spend the whole time. We'll do a theology podcast eventually on some of this, but we'll have Nick back. But like you mentioned, like Tom Ward's version of God kind of being able to interact and change with us. To me, I find it really compelling, but there's still just most of my pushback is like, how I view time. And I'm like, metaphysics of time. And I'm like, yeah, God's ability to change really that you're talking about only works if you believe in time as a more linear thing than I do. Yeah. Which is where like some of Tolkien's language of God creating through song and rhythm, I'm like, okay, I can get to that, because whether or not I think time exists, I know that songs are real. Like I've listened to a song.
Yeah.
You know? So kind of putting that language to it, as some of that more poetic language to it, that like Taoism and like the force and how everything is part of like its own energy and rhythm. And it's like that's kind of just more my feel. Like it's less that God can or can't change, and more of a God is, or we all are. And what change as a concept to me is a little difficult when you start thinking about time and like this more ontological, like what is the universe kind of stuff. So that's where I'm like, I get too much in my head, and it's easier to use the Taoist language because that avoids getting in my head about it.
No, total respect. And the issue, I think more Christians need to deal with the real physics that are being explored in the scientific community with space-time stuff. Because it's just not. Sure. It's just when people are like, oh yeah, time obviously real, and you're like, talk to the physicists.
Have you seen Einstein's
literally
test that proves space-time? Because time ain't real, guys. Anyway, man, this has been fun. I just want to do like a quick Christmas thing for everybody. So I'm going to run through a few quick Christmas questions. Tell everyone where they can use their Amazon gift cards on Amazon to get your book. Actually, just remind them to do that. And any other Christmas money they have. Just buy a bunch of copies of Nick's book. Do what we're geeking out on. God moment, and let's wrap this thing up. Speed round of Christmas questions. In fact, I think I might make this an unexpected speed round. You have to answer in a sentence or less. And as an English teacher, I'm going to put you to the challenge. You have to use punctuation.
Ooh.
So you have to say your commas, your semicolons, whatever. Okay. I need to hear it.
Okay, I'm ready.
Are you ready? All right, here we go. I'm going to do it too. It's going to be fun. What does the Christmas story mean to you?
It means that Jesus is incarnate, and that makes hope tangible and salvation real. Period.
Well, as someone who believes that God's in all things fully anyway, I'll just say that I don't know, but I do know that it is a story of hope in the darkness, and that Nick Polk is coming to town. Does it matter if the Christmas story really happened?
Yes, because it is a historical moment that emphasizes God's infinite and necessary connection to the material world, period.
I'm going to say it only matters if that is the only possible way for you to actualize and understand that the divine is in every single living thing and particle of space-time. But it absolutely matters that you know that incarnation. But what's your favorite biblical argument around the Christmas story?
I don't have a favorite biblical argument for the Christmas story.
I'll give two then. I always think it's really funny when people argue about how many wise men there were, because like that's just like the most insignificant thing I've ever heard. So it's hilarious to me. My actual favorite to study and think about though is the Jesus Bethlehem, or was he born in Nazareth? I think he was born in Nazareth because he's known as Jesus of Nazareth. I don't think Bethlehem happened. I think that was just a good story to let us know that he does have kingship over something.
Ooh, I like that. I like that.
But like, I don't think it's a real story because he's not called Jesus of Bethlehem.
You're not wrong.
Anyway. All right, that was our quick little Christmas speed round. Now, Nick, everybody's going to go get your book. They're going to use their Amazon gift cards. They're going to use their Amazon money. What would you like to say to them? Like, what is your verbal response to all these people who are going to go buy your book? We're just going to assume they're doing it.
Yeah, what you'll have is you'll just have a single paperback volume that will have all of the essays that I've written on Substack for the first 2 years, on Substack, and it's got footnotes. I've got an index and a bibliography, so you can see the sources I've used. It's a lot clean. It's cleaned up. For the most part, the grammar and punctuation are fixed. And
Nice.
like I said, it's Tolkien and Pop Culture Volume 1, and I hope that if you like books, that this will be a nice little thing to add to your bookshelf.
Yeah, and if the Silmarillion and like some of the other Tolkien writings where like he spends an entire chapter describing a tree is a little bit too much for you, Nick Polk makes it digestible. So get on your bookshelf after you buy it, because when you're going to buy it, make sure it's on your bookshelf where everyone can see. Tolkien and Pop Culture and Tolkien, one of the two. Volume 1 by Nick Polk.
Yeah,
I'm so bad at names. Anyway, we're gonna do a little bit of systematic ecology here. Nick, what have you been geeking out on?
Recently, I have been geeking out on Magic the Gathering, Lord of the Rings. So I've got
Nice.
2 commander decks, and it's only because it's Lord of the Rings.
This will make no sense to anyone, I don't think, but Lower Decks just wrapped up, and I loved it so much. I almost went back and rewatched it, and for some reason, almost rewatching it inspired me instead to rewatch a bunch of David Tennant Doctor Who, so I'm geeking out on that.
Heck yeah.
I couldn't tell you what the connection was. It was just like I went to rewatch old Lower Decks and was like, David Tennant's pretty much the same thing. Girl in the Fireplace. Let's watch this. So, Nick, now this is where I'm going to turn the geek out into a whole church thing. What if we assume our practical action is to ask each other what we're geeking out on and ask each other about the stories that we share, like Tolkien, Kingdom Hearts, whatever. If we did that and we all asked about each other's interest and shared more in these stories together, do you think that would make any tangible difference to our churches in the world around us today?
Yes. I mean, if you talk to somebody and they say, hey, you know what I did this weekend? If you're talking to your coworker and you're like, oh, what'd you do this weekend? And someone's like, oh yeah, I was racing cars or whatever. And if you go, oh, you race cars? Tell me more about that. And you genuinely have an interest, you will see that person light up. And because you have postured yourself in a way that's open to someone's interest, they will then want to return to you and share more and hear what you have to say. So I think so.
Yeah. Amen and hallelujah. Well, now on to another whole church segment. We're going to do our God moment and just quickly share something where you've seen God in recently, blessing, challenge, whatever. Mine's easy. We got the house we wanted.
Yeah.
I'm just excited. We were going to get to move, and my dog might get a fence, and that would be cool.
Heck yeah.
And for those who have been following for a while, they know why that was such a big moment. But Nick, what about you, man? Where have you seen God in recently?
Yeah, there's just been some kind of personal tragedies with friends and family recently. And I think that just being able to just be there with people and just say like, hey, this sucks, and be with them. You know, those moments are terrible, but they also kind of bring you closer together and give you an opportunity to just be with people as they suffer, you know?
Yeah, second that one. That's a good one. Weirdly, I feel like it's a really good Christmas one because a lot of people, this is the hardest time of the year, and remembering to both take time to have joy with those who are having joy and to weep with those who are weeping, as the Bible says. You know, it's a good idea. Yeah. Anyway, I'm bad at doing the wrap up outro stuff for this because I never have to do it for this show because that's TJ's job. TJ, stop working so much. Everyone else, though, if you're not TJ and you're listening to this, you don't have to feel bad about yourself. So instead, feel good about yourself as you share Nick Polk's book with other people. Also, share this podcast with a friend, enemy, or a cousin that might enjoy it. We also appreciate you guys sharing. It helps more than literally anything else. More than your money, shares help. But you can give us money by subscribing on Captivate, Apple Podcasts, and Patreon for some extra content. It's good stuff. And check out the other shows on the Azal Podcast Network if you want more Christmas, some joyful noises. Joe and Evan did a Christmas episode recently. And I'm about to do a Kingdom Hearts songs thing over there. So yeah, maybe Nick will do Lord of the Rings music one day.
One day. One day.
Yeah. All right, guys. With that, we hope you enjoyed the show. Next week, we're going to have a week off because, again, we had a few episodes canceled. So we're just letting you know ahead of time. We are going to have a week off for New Year's. It was not planned, though. But after that, first episode of next year is going to be with Professor Aaron Simmons to discuss what it means to live a life worthy of your finitude. Great way to start the year off. After that, we're going to have another roundtable. This time it's going to be about Christian mysticism and what the fruit of the Spirit really are or is, depending on how what tints you use there, I guess. At the end of season 1, though, Francis Chan is going to be on probably, perhaps, as soon as one of you guys tell him that he's going to be on, because he currently does not know about it. So maybe let him know.
Early Christmas present?
Yeah, early Christmas present. Someone just grab Francis Chan, shove him in front of the mic, and click the link. Also, get the link from me, I guess. All right, guys. Thank you so much for listening, and I wish you all a very Merry Christmas. Smooches. Thank you for listening to the Whole Church Podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show. Remember, you can always sponsor our efforts to educate and unite the church on Captivate, Patreon, or Apple Podcast. If you're not into the subscription thing, again, you can leave a one-time tip on our Captivate website down below in the description notes. Thank you again, and please come back next week.